People with relatively few assets will get more. People with relatively more assets will get less.
As part of next week's budget, the government plans to overhaul the age pension, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. At the moment, couples with up to $1.15 million in assets, not including the home they live in, can claim the part pension. So can single pensioners with $775,000. This threshold will drop to $823,000 for couples and $547,000 for singles, saving $600 million a year.
This is something that we need to do. We need to look both at age pension eligibility, which is too broad, and at superannuation tax concessions, which are far too generous to those on high incomes.
Last year, we spent $146 billion on welfare, a third of the total budget. If this measure gets passed, it'd shave just 0.4% off the welfare budget. In a move that's left many stunned, the opposition has opposed the idea.
Part pensioners are an endangered species in the Abbott government's budget, and now we see the Abbott government going after their health concessions and their pensions with an axe.
The changes would also give 170,000 pensioners with more modest assets a $30 a fortnight increase in their pension. But it won't come into effect until 2017, meaning the government has to survive an election first.
Politically clever, there's an element of Robin Hood to it.
All right, Waleed, we got it the first time.
It's quite a skillful art to actually cut money and still create winners along the way.
While seniors groups aren't saying it's a bad move, they're urging caution.
This is still a political football. It will continue to be so unless we have a proper independent review so that it's not the government's idea or the opposition's idea, each of whom will attack the other side. And that would be a real political gift to the country.
We asked the Prime Minister and the Minister for Social Services, Scott Morrison, to chat to us. They both said no. Labor leader Bill Shorten was on our show a few days ago, and he had so much fun that he's back again today. Welcome, Bill.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Bill. This plan is going to save $600 million a year by cutting unnecessary pension payments. But you oppose this today. Why?
Well, what we actually said is we want to look at the fine detail. It was only last year that Tony Abbott said there'd be no changes to pensions. And then in the last budget, he proposed cutting pensions by up to $80 a week. So I think it's in the interest of Australia's pensioners that we just don't rush in and agree with every headline. Let's study the detail.
But as a matter of principle, though, it's a good idea, isn't it? You send more money to pensioners at the lower end of their asset scale, so they get more money per fortnight. People who don't really need it don't get it at all or get less. Isn't that exactly what you've been asking for the past year?
Certainly we are interested in fairness. People want to hear about what does Australia look like in the next 10 and 15 years and the alternative views. And, you know, as we get closer to the next election, I think that's where we want to see politics go. You know, what's the best idea? Doesn't mean we're all going to start group hugging each other. I mean...
Oh, Lord, no.
I saw that awkward photo between Tony and Joe, and so, you know, politics isn't moving into the hug zone yet. But I get that people want to see a better debate, and that's why we will look at these proposals, but we also want to say that if 320,000 part pensioners becoming worse off, I think we owe it to them to at least check.
And you met with some of those pensioners today, and let's just have another look at... it wasn't an awkward photo opportunity at all. It was a natural conversation here.
And they want to make part pensioners a sort of an endangered species in Australia, which is not, you know, agreed.
Not exactly a bedtime story, was it?
But, Bill, at the top end of the scale, pensioners are still getting welfare despite having more than $1 million in assets. I mean, surely that's unnecessary.
Well, that's why we've got the tougher approach on superannuation tax concessions. This is where I get a bit confused.
Sure, tackling super tax concessions for the rich is a good idea, but this is a good idea, isn't it?
It's valid to look at ideas about how you make the system better. Now, whilst this may ultimately be what the Parliament decides, I just want to understand when governments make laws and affect pensioners, we just need to make sure that we understand the consequences of what we are doing. What good would we be as an opposition if we simply said to Tony Abbott last year, oh, you want to cut the pension? No worries. So we need to just watch what we're doing. I mean, this is a favourite tactic of governments of all political persuasions, sort of dribble out the best possible spin. And I think it would be foolish of the opposition just to say, based on the headlines, we'll rush into this. But having said that, 2 days after budget and the less watched budget reply night, if you don't mind me putting a plug in.
You're worried about the ratings, aren't you?
Well, you know.
We'll watch, Bill, we'll watch.
OK, that's...
I've got to say, you haven't strayed too far from your message today. This is what you had to say earlier today.
Because if he won't come out and admit that he's been lying to Australians about pension cuts, that means that these pension cuts maybe off the table.
You stand by that?
I certainly stand by pension cuts. We are pleased that the government's done that.
Just wanted to make sure you're standing by it.
It's that forensic detail which makes it such a top-rated show.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's time for us to go to a break. Would you please thank Bill Shorten?